Hello, my name is Bob Tribe, and welcome to Valley to Vietnam. Valley to Vietnam is a joint effort between the Sacramento Public Library and the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 500. It is our intent to trace the arc of experience between Sacramento and Vietnam for our local Vietnam-era vets. Our guest today is Larry Meeks, who was an artillery officer with the U.S. Army. Larry, welcome, and thank you for your service, my man. Larry, you weren't born here in Sacramento. You were born in Bakersfield.
Right.
And so you grew up there. How did you end up in Bakersfield?
Well, I was born and raised in Bakersfield. My parents came there from Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
And as the family story goes, my grandpa had to catch the midnight freight out of Dumas, Arkansas to avoid the Ku Klux Klan. They were trying to lynch him, and so he came out to California to start a new life. And my dad was 3 years old when he got here, and my mother was born here in California.
Okay.
Raised in the Mojave Desert, where my grandpa homesteaded out there.
Oh, nice.
So between Bakersfield and the Mojave Desert out near Roseman.
Can you grow anything in the Mojave Desert?
Yes, you grow rattlesnakes, and you grow tumbleweeds, and you grow those kinds of things.
So you went to elementary school and high school in Bakersfield.
Right. And community college there.
And community college, and then you came to Sacramento.
Via a couple of others. I went off from Bakersfield, four-year colleges,
right.
From San Jose to Los Angeles, and then I came to Sacramento, chasing this pretty little brown-eyed girl.
So you went to San Jose State, you went to LA State.
Right.
And then you came here and eventually would go to UC Davis.
I graduated from UC Davis after I came back from Vietnam.
Oh, okay. So I sort of forgot that. You got married here
2 weeks before I went into the service.
You were drafted?
I was drafted,
right.
And I went 2 weeks before I had to report. I had to go end up in Fort Benning, Georgia. That's where I did my basic.
I know that place.
Mm-hmm.
So you did your basic training at Benning, and you were drafted, and so you were going to have a 2-year commitment.
Right. And while I was at Benning, I was pulled out of ranks and told to report and to some place, and me and about 10 other guys were there.
Yeah.
From all over the whole training brigade, and they said, we scored real high on these tests, and we want you to be officers, and if you don't become an officer, you're going to regret the very day you were born. And so they scared us so much that I believe every one of us signed, and once you did that, it added a year to your total service.
Right. And I think at that time,
essentially
you had 3 choices. You had infantry, armored, or artillery.
Well, I don't remember which the choices, but I selected engineering.
Ah, yes.
And so I signed up for engineering. I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for combat engineering training, and then I waited my orders, and when my orders came, artillery. And I said, well, I didn't sign up for artillery. They said, we don't care what you signed up for. You go where you're sent. So I ended up at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
You know, at least the way it worked when I was in, and I was in infantry OCS, there wasn't a separate kind of signal or engineer, officer candidate school. It was the training you got after you went to OCS. So you had your choice of those 3, and then you got that training later. So, but once you get into artillery, in infantry, it's easy to kind of change.
To change,
But I don't think in artillery it's as easy.
No.
They needed artillery officers.
They needed artillery officers, but as we'll find out later on, I ended up in the infantry. So.
Okay. Now, so what other training did you have here in the States before you went to Vietnam then?
Before I went to, after I graduated from artillery, then I was sent to Fort Lewis, Washington for a year. And it was there that I was Honest John Rockets.
And this is as a second lieutenant.
As a second lieutenant.
Yeah.
And then just before I get sent, my orders came for Vietnam, and then I'm sent to Panama
Oh.
for jungle training.
Ooh,
And
exciting.
yeah, really. And
People
so
actually died in that
in
training. I
Yes,
remember.
they did.
We had
Yes.
people who drowned down there.
Yes, exactly. And I had one guy bust his shoulder in 4 places, and
Yeah.
rappelling across the Chagres River and all
Right.
this other kind of stuff. And it was grueling. It was. It's a good thing I was young at the time.
Yeah.
Because
They talked about a lot of rain down there and
That's
these
all
narrow
of-
streams
Yes.
that would become very deep and just
Right.
wash people away.
watch people. If you and one guy slipped, went into the water, and that was the last we saw him. We were just jumping over it. We were doing traversing through the jungles, and that's what happened. It was just constant rain, mud,
Yeah.
rain. You never had a dry day. Sort of like what I experienced in Vietnam.
Exactly. That's just what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So you end up going to Vietnam
Yes.
in January of 1968.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And
The
so
very beginning of January '68, we went to Travis Air Force Base caught a plane and went to first stop was the Philippines, and then to Vietnam.
Benoit.
And
Okay.
landed at Benoit Air Force Base. And the very first night, we were under attack. And
Wow.
there I am, no weapons, no nothing, in this bunk. And somebody came by, we're under attack. And I said, what do you do? They said, I don't have anything. They said, well, get under the bunk.
Is this a tent, a Quonset, or what?
No, it was a barracks.
Okay.
You know, it looked like it was made out of metal. I don't think it was a Quonset hut.
Yeah.
It was just it was a building.
Right.
And it had a bunch of bunk beds in there. And so I'm crawling under the lower bunk, trying to protect myself, not knowing where the next rocket was going to come in.
So rockets, mortars.
Mortars, there was a lot of boom, boom, booms outside. And
After a while, you probably got to know all the individual, sounds and what.
yes,
what
yeah,
was
well,
coming.
I was one of these people. I just ducked at any sound, just about.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to find out what it was later, and
Yeah.
at the time, you're ducking.
So your initial assignment in Vietnam is going to be what?
Artillery.
Okay.
Artillery. I'm sent to, I believe it was the 1st of the 20th. I'm sent to a battery, 105, 155 Meeks, and I was over there at a place called Na Bay, right by Saigon, by some big, huge oil tanks, and I always kept thinking that if somebody ever hit those oil tanks, you know how big they are.
Yeah, you'd be all over.
We'll be, all that oil, little gasoline comes spilling out,
Yeah.
and we would be just cooked.
Yeah.
And we were right on the river, and there's rivers everywhere in Vietnam.
Right.
And so, in fact, I even pulled I didn't, but one of my men pulled a body out of the river, an American, and he was pretty messed up, and
You've been there for some time.
oh God, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And we covered him with a tarp and put a guard on it to keep the dogs off of him, because they try to eat him.
Yeah.
And but put him downwind so we don't have to smell it. That was my first experience in seeing the dead.
Right.
But that was just the beginning, and so then after that.
And how long were you doing that, or?
Oh,
in
it
that
was.
location?
I was only there a short time, maybe about 3-4 weeks, and then
Okay.
I was transferred to another artillery battery on the other side of Saigon.
Okay.
And that's where I was when Tet broke out.
And that's probably south, down closer to the Delta then?
That was no, that was going east
Okay.
because when the NVA came through.
Yes, from Cambodia or
Yeah, from Cambodia
Or the Ho
over
Chi
there,
Minh.
off the trail,
Yeah.
and they went through us
Right.
to get to we were on the other side of Sholan, which was the Chinese sector
Right.
of Vietnam.
Saigon, yeah.
Yeah, Saigon.
Yeah. Now, so how long were you there, and what sort of things happened?
I was there until after Tet, a few weeks after Tet.
Okay.
I was there. What happened? We had the big Tet Offensive, as you know.
What was that like?
And it was terrible. We were under orders not to fire, and by the president, you could not fire. In order to fire an artillery round, it took it was a lot of effort. You had to get approvals from everybody. You had to get approvals from the district chiefs. You got to get approval from our own artillery. You had to get approval from the Air Force. You got to have everybody, because when you fire these rounds, you know, they go real high and real far. So when Tet broke out, we were on orders not to. My forward observer, who was with the infantry over there near Sholon, called in for a fire mission. And I in turn said, no, you can't. We're under orders not to fire. And so he said, he's under attack. And so I said, well, let me get permission. So we call in. And battalion is trying to get permission. And for brigade, division, and all this other stuff. In the meantime, the forward observer is now on the phone. He's crying. Either fire or we die. They're everywhere. The enemy. Yeah. So we say, you know, I call in and says, we're going to fire. And he said, I get this statement. All right, Lieutenant.
It's on you.
It's on you.
Yeah.
You don't have permission. I said, but we fired. So we started firing.
Yeah.
And fired and fired and fired. We adjust with 2 rounds. And then the middle 2 guns we adjust with. And then when you're on target, then you open up with all the guns.
Fire for effect.
Fire for effect.
Yeah.
And so once we were on target, you fire. And then once you fire all the guns, then you wait for the adjustments. Because, you know, once those rounds land, everybody there is obliterated. There's nothing left.
Are these all HE, high explosive rounds?
Yes, yes, all high explosive with VT fuses.
So they blow, some of them
they blow above ground, have for maximum killing radius.
Yeah.
And so, anyway,
well,
the forward observer then says,
that's what I was going to ask.
again. And I'm thinking, again, you know, I'm waiting for a just, okay, we annihilated the enemy in this area. Now, what's the next? He said again, which meant they were coming. They kept coming. They're in the same area. So you kill all the enemy there, but more are coming.
So they don't care how many they lose.
They are just almost like a wave. I'm sitting there, have these visions of the hordes of the Chinese during the Korean War.
Now, how long had you fired when he said again?
And I fired, and then he said again, no adjustment, and so we just immediately fired again.
Yeah.
And then he said again, and fired again, and so then I realized, you know, you give the order to the gun, says battery 1 round, and then they shoot. Then it got up to battery 2 rounds. No adjustments. I mean, this is big stuff. No adjustments. And then we ended up shooting battery 3 rounds, and that is unheard of. I never shot guns with battery, all the guns shooting without adjustments. Yeah. In the same spot, just shooting.
That means you're covering a
large area, and a lot of people still coming. And so then finally we started adjusting around, and we end up blowing up almost the entire Sholon area.
Because they're in the city.
They're all everywhere. Yeah, they're outside Sholon there, and they get in there. And wherever I'm being told by my observer to drop rounds, that's what we were doing. Yeah. And we fired all night. And while we were firing, then we come under attack. I guess we were doing too much damage. And then the enemy attacked us. Surrounding, protecting us, was a company of infantry that were protecting us. And the enemy somehow got in between us, or at least that's what we think. Right. And they started, mortar rounds start coming in, small armed rounds start coming in, we start returning fire. Infantry tells us, hey, you're shooting at us. Yeah. No, we're shooting at the enemy. No, no, no. You know, remember now, everything is chaos. Yeah. Everything is chaos. And then the infantry, the officer I'm talking to, all right, we're going to return fire from whoever shoots at us. And all of a sudden, he opens up with these quad 50s. Oh my God. And our sandbags and things we were hiding behind start melting like a blowtorch on snow. Yeah. And then we're screaming on the phone, ceasefire, ceasefire. They're coming in. And then someone says, The enemy has pierced our lines. Then we are all down in bunkers. Anything moving, anything coming around, we shoot. Everybody's frightened, scared.
Yeah.
Chaos. You know.
Your ammo holding up?
Well, yes. We had enough ammo to go through the night, and then after that, finally daylight comes, and we're still shooting and trying to shoot. And then we're surveying the damage. We had one outside our perimeter. We had an APC, an armored personnel carrier. Two guys were in there. Rocket hit it. That was the first time I ever knew a human body could disintegrate.
Right.
And there was nothing in there, nothing.
Right.
Except just red.
Because the rockets would hit those APCs and then just fracture
all over
inside, and just
I guess the explosions and concussions and everything, but there was no body left. There was nothing to take home, send home. There was nothing.
I always thought that being an infantry officer, you were safer than being an armored officer.
Oh God,
you know, it's a little spooky.
It is spooky to see what happens. And then after that, then we're still shooting during the day. Now we're out of ammo. Then we have to get more ammo.
Yeah.
And we have to go. Then we go with the infantry. We go into need to go to Tansanuk, the air base, to get more artillery rounds.
Right.
And so they put together a convoy led by a tank, and I'm the officer. Have to go to Saigon to get it, and I'm in the tank, and we're going down the street. All the trucks and everything behind us to hold the rounds, you know, and going down the road and shooting, and we're receiving fire.
Waiting for one of those trucks to blow up.
Oh gosh, you're sitting there thinking any minute.
Yeah.
And I've got all these visions. What's it going to feel like to die? That's what's going through my head. What's it going to feel like? And I try not to think about it. And then when the guy on top of the tank who's shooting the machine gun, he gets hit and he slithers down. And then I'm the only one without a job. And then the guy tells me, Lieutenant,
grab the machine gun.
Oh my gosh! I tell you, Bob, it was a scary day.
Yeah.
But we got to Tansanuk and got in, and then we worked our way back. And still we were just all day, all the time. And finally, Tet ended. And then after it ended, then the battery was ordered over to the Futo racetrack, which was near the embassy. And they still had stuff going on over there. But we were at a distance from it, and we can hear small arms fire and stuff going on at the. See, small arms fire. Anything less than a cannon is small arms to us,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, and so I was over there at, you know, and then I get a few days after Tet. I don't know exactly how many. I know it's less than a week. I get orders to report to battalion. And then the battalion is told they need company grade officers to head up to do some special work. But they wanted somebody who had at least, you know, had been in Vietnam for a while,
right,
and had a minimum of 6 months to go, and on their tour of duty, and for some special assignment, and every combat branch had to send one officer. And I was the only officer in the battalion that fit those narrow parameters.
Right.
And a company grade officer. So I believe I was a first lieutenant at that time. So they send me over. Then that's when I find out what it's all about. After they said you're going, then what they did was they created what they call mobile advisory teams. General Abrams had now taken over
from Westmoreland.
Well, from Westmoreland, and somebody, I guess around him or something, I am told, I don't know this for a fact, that the reason the Vietnamese don't really like us because they don't know us. And so they said, we need people to go out and live with the Vietnamese in these heatherland areas way out in the middle of nowhere.
And win the hearts and minds.
And win the hearts and minds. My official duty statement was, my mission was, identify and destroy the VC infrastructure and win the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese people.
Wow.
So that was my
official.
Yes. and so we went through 2 weeks of training, and on all the do's and don'ts, what you do in Vietnamese culture. We learned a few words in Vietnamese, how to get along, and that was the first time I learned when you cross your foot, your legs, never let the bottom of your foot show to an individual, because that's a sign of disrespect.
Oh.
Yes, I never knew.
Never heard that one.
Well, to this day, I still practice that.
Right.
I always make sure my feet do not point at anybody. You never know when you're being disrespectful.
Sure.
So anyway, after we went through this training, I was assigned 5 senior NCOs. The lowest one was an E5, and 1 officer under me. And we were given a Jeep and a generator and a bunch of supplies. And we were told to go to the delta right near where the Mekong crossed into Cambodia. I think people call it the Parrot's Beak. Right there on the border is where I was.
That's pretty far out.
It was so far out. There were no American troops around us. We were there completely isolated.
Did you ever find out where the closest American unit was?
It was, Canto was the nearest one, and I figure that was about 75 or more kilometers away.
Yeah.
Or I'm not quite sure, but they were so far away. And the only other Americans were at a place called Chow Duc. Chow Duc was also on the border of Vietnam, and in fact, I even saw a movie about some of the action happening in Chow Duc, and I thought, if you wanted to see action, you should have been where I was. But anyway, they were, but they were a few advisors over there, no troops, just a few advisors, and so here we were, and we were advisors too, and I'm in the MAC-V now, infantry.
Right.
And so that's why I was awarded the CIB, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, because I was in the infantry now.
Yeah, and you don't get that unless you're in the
infantry. You're in the infantry.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could be an artillery officer and catch it all kinds of hell and never get one.
Never get one.
Yeah.
But now I am. So anyway, so to this day I proudly wear it.
That's the best one.
So, but anyway, we were there, and we were sent out there, and the equipment we were given, we find out, is useless. The reason is the Jeep. The only way we can get where we were going was there were no roads, so we had to go by sampan and all this. So we gave the Jeep to the district office. You can have it. The generator is too heavy to carry. We couldn't carry that big old thing. So we just took what we could, and there we spent the remainder of our time in Vietnam out there, living like animals, in my opinion.
And there was a village there, and these are the people that you were supposed to win the
hearts and minds of. There was a little village, and there was where we ended up was a little French fort that was there right on the border. And all the walls were knocked down, and pieces of the wall was here and there. And there was a company of rough puffs, Republic and Popular Forces of Vietnam. This was like the militia. And so we were there in this little French fort with about 200 of the rough puffs. And it wasn't just them, it was their family, their wives, their children, their animals, their chickens, their pigs, everything running around there. And here were these 5, 6 Americans, and amongst them. And so I'm supposed to train them and they all had weapons, mismatched weapons. Nobody had to look like. Most of them didn't wear shoes. They didn't uniforms. They had bits and pieces of uniform, and there we were.
And so, this major shift from Westmoreland being in charge to Abrams being in charge, this huge change in strategy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, that's not done real well. There's not a smooth transition, and that certainly was the result for you because you ended up there not getting any resupplies.
I was there with no. Now I have no support. I have nothing. My commanding officer was a colonel, and I don't know what happened to him.
A desk
colonel somewhere in Saigon.
Yeah.
And we called to try to, get supplies and things like that, and he was not, nobody basically even heard of him. I never could get him. And so there we were, and there goes my chain of command.
Right.
I don't know who my commanding officer is.
And you guys ended up in rags?
Rags.
Trying to get your own food?
Yes.
Living with the villagers, eating what they ate?
Absolutely. I at the end of my tour, I weighed 149 pounds.
And
we ate anything we could get our hands on. We would. Our uniforms, our equipment wore out. We were now in pajamas, black pajamas, but my boots survived.
Wow.
And so.
What did you weigh before when you came to Vietnam?
I weighed about 210.
Jeez.
And
so you lost 60 pounds.
Yes, 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And but you ended up ate some very, very strange food. In one instance, I ended up eating rat.
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time, but what happened was there was this village chief, and they wanted me to celebrate his birthday. And I was a finicky eater. I didn't want to eat that stuff. And so they told my interpreter, I also had an interpreter assigned to us. And he, in turn, was told to get me to this birthday celebration. It was out there in a little camp.
Uh-huh.
We were out there outside and around a little campfire and the pot, and they're drinking and having a merry time. And here I come. And eat. And I'm asking my interpreter, what is this? Oh, chicken. Oh, chicken. Ha ha, chicken. Because they know me. And so I'm eating this dish. Meat and rice. Right. And,
some vegetables.
And smeared with nook mom and that kind of stuff. And someone asked, well, what did it taste like? It tastes like all the sauce and stuff, but the texture of it was not like chicken. So finally I got tired. I kept asking him, what is it? And so he tells me, finally, I told him, if you don't tell me, I'm going to choke you. And so he gets scared, and he said, it's rat, same chicken. And when he told me that, I stood up and walked about 5-6 steps and up chuck. and it was.
So I get this view of like in Apocalypse Now when they find Marlon Brando's unit out there in the boonies, just kind of doing their own thing. This was us. You guys were a mini.
We were mini like this, and I had one of our medic was Special Forces. Uh-huh. He was real gung ho. He wanted always to do something, and I was one of these people. I wanted to play safe.
Yeah.
And I'm responsible. I'm the OIC. I'm the officer in charge, and so I'm playing safe. And so we ended up doing some medical work for the villagers and things like that. We did that. But the rest of it I did training for the Rough Puffs, tried to teach them how to read maps and things like that. But I'm trying to stay out of combat because, I am not taking these guys here out in combat and knowing full well we're going to lose.
And you're not getting any
And I have no support. I have no artillery support. I have nothing, and so I'm trying to, we stay where we are. And we're on the border, and we have snipers, and rounds come in every so often, and we can't go after where the rounds are coming in because they're in the other country, and you're not allowed to do that. And so, in fact, one time so many rounds came in, I told the sergeant, I said, we're going to shoot back. And so we opened up with some M60s, and we threw quite a bit of lead over into Cambodia.
Uh-huh.
In about a week or so, I get this call from district about somebody shooting into Cambodia, and what's going on.
Right.
Of course, I have no idea what's going on.
Eventually, this desk colonel shows up.
Well, let me get.
And you do get some resupply, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, we were there trying to survive. We were flooded. It was terrible. Ran out of ammo. Had to go to an ammo dump, and had to get all this, and had to take ammunition practically by threatening the sergeant, you either give it to me, because I didn't have any paperwork.
Yeah.
And here I am looking like some weird-looking guy with
black pajamas.
But I need the ammo.
Yeah.
And I told him, you either give it to me, or I'm just going to start shooting. I said, it makes me no difference, because I'm dead either way. If I don't get the ammo, I'm dead. My men are gone, and I'm desperate. So he gives it to me, and I convince him I'm legit, and or I scared him, and he gave it to me.
Yeah.
So I get the ammo, and we're over there. And before I get to this desk jockey you mentioned, then I just really want this on the record. While I was there, I was visited by this doctor. His name was Kavanaugh, Dr. Kavanaugh. He said he was from Sacramento.
Oh.
And he was an MD. I was there, and all of a sudden he came, got out of a sandpan, and he had a big long rifle and long hunting boots and a hunting vest, and he says, I hear there's a lot of action going on up here. I said, yeah, quite a bit. He says, well, I'm here to help you. And I said, help me? He says, yeah. He mentioned how he was in Korea. And he was in the medical corps, and he never got a chance to get out into combat. And he wanted to experience combat.
Was he in the military?
He was a volunteer who came to Vietnam under the impression that he was going to be a medical doctor.
Right.
As a volunteer.
Yeah.
Well, that made him older than, we were only around, I was around 25, I guess at the time, 24.
Sure.
But he was old compared to what I was. And so anyway, he comes. Basically, he wanted to collect ears. He wanted to collect souvenirs. I think the guy was something wrong with him.
Yeah.
And so then he's hanging around, and he brings some liquor with him. We didn't have all that there. And so after a while, he finds out I'm not gung-ho to run out there and start hunting and shooting people.
Right.
And so he liquors up one of my sergeants. And after they liquored up, then they go out. He talks them into going out to collect some ears at night. Now I'm asleep in this little old hooch that is, little nothing of a hooch that we lived in.
Uh-huh.
And wake up in the morning, I'm looking around, where's Sergeant Horner? Where is he? And he's gone. Here comes now noon, no Sergeant Horner. Kavanaugh's gone. And then somewhere around 3 o'clock, here they come in, looking like something had been drugged through the mud, and Horner had been shot, and the dock had all covered with mud. Well, come to find out, they had found some VC, and they decided they were going to shoot. Well, you find out quickly in combat, you're not the only one with guns. They got guns too.
Right.
They were overmatched, and they spent the whole night hiding in the mud and all this other kind of stuff. So after that, I was so incensed, of what was going on with this guy.
Yeah.
So I called the district, and who is this guy? And they tell me all of Saigon's looking for him, and they told me to get him out of there. Well, I'm not going to tell you how I got him out of there, but I got him out of there.
Yeah.
And sent him hogtied back to Saigon, or whatever happened. I never knew what happened to him, and but anyway, but he created quite a problem for me.
That is strange.
It is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird.
Weird.
But there were a lot of weird things happened out there. I mean, just trying to survive, trying to get water, trying to just living. I'm very good now at drinking dirty river water and how to purify it and make it clean.
And you didn't get sick?
I didn't get sick. In fact, one of my men got sick, got amoebic dysentery, went to the hospital, was gone 45 days.
Wow.
And I got to thinking, maybe I can get sick. I figured amoebic dysentery was better. Was better than a bullet.
But you didn't get sick.
I couldn't catch a thing.
Now, eventually, you're headed back to the States. This would be December of '68.
Right.
And are you?
Oh, you wanted me to finish about the desk jockey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Near the end of my tour, around the 11th month, a helicopter lands out where we are, and which was real strange because no helicopters ever came out and landed where we were because we were right on the borders. Too dangerous. Out of the helicopter comes this colonel. I'll never forget, he had shiny shoes on, creased pants, big eagles on him. I mean, I
Here's
thought.
the reincarnation of General Patton.
Oh God, he was beautiful. He was beautiful. Because I was about as grungy as a guy could get.
Yeah.
You had no shaving equipment. You had no toothbrush. You had no toothpastes. You had nothing. You were like you had nothing.
No soap.
No soap, no nothing, but you try to stay as clean as you can.
Yeah.
And so here this guy comes off in a helicopter, and I come out there with all my weapons and stuff and on, because you never go anywhere without them.
Yeah.
And I'm saluting him, and he looks around, and he says, who's in charge of this place?
Obviously not you.
I said, I am. He said, who the blank are you?
Yeah.
And I tell him, Lieutenant Meeks. And first thing out of his mouth, where's your uniform?
Well, it's that pile of rags.
Hey, I told him, I said, hey, there's been gone,
Yeah.
And I told him, not only that, I says, we're safer without them on because from a distance they know we're Americans and they snipe at us. We get snipe fire.
Yeah.
And then he accused me of being a coward. Oh God, he ripped me up, and then he got mad. He wanted me to brief him, and I didn't have all the nice briefing material. I didn't have a place for him to sit. I gave him a gasoline can to sit on. He got mad about that.
Because you never see outside humans.
Hey. And the map I had was some folded up stinky thing I kept in my, down in here.
Yeah.
And he complained about that. Complained about my living conditions, and complained how we were living. And I kept telling him, sir, we have no backup, we have no supplies, no nothing. And then he wanted to know where my, I think they were called sundry packs or whatever. These are huge boxes that they give a platoon, where it's got all of the essentials for living, everything from cigarettes to a soap, toothbrushes, to everything people need to survive.
Right.
Well, he wanted to know where I got it. I said, sir, we have nothing. We don't get this. We've tried. We've called. Nobody responds. I told him I didn't know you existed until now.
Right.
And so anyway. So he wants me to show him around the place, and I do, and I walk around, and I'm walking down in the mud because, it's not safe to be up on the berm.
But that's where he is.
But that's because it's clean. He don't want to get his shoes dirty. Well, yeah. What happens next is a sniper round comes in. It didn't hit him, but he leaped off of that. He landed, standing in the mud, splashed it all over me, but I didn't care. I'm full of mud anyway, and but his uniform got a little muddy, and he says, "I see what you mean," and then he trots off to, he said, "I've seen enough," and he goes to his helicopter, walking as fast as he can. Then he tells me, he says, "I'll see you get your supplies."
Yeah, and you did.
And I did. And he went off, flew off, but I did.
Yeah.
And not only I got 1 box for 30 men, I got 2 boxes for 30 men.
And there were 6 of you.
And there was 6 of us.
Yeah.
I went from poverty to I was rich.
And the villagers got some
And
of this.
well, that's what made me rich, because now I had material to trade. Money was not any good.
Now you're winning the hearts.
Now
and minds.
I'm winning the hearts and the minds of the people.
Yeah.
Because and the most valuable thing I owned that they would do anything to get was menthol cigarettes.
Jeez.
That's what was the...
Never cared for those.
Oh. Menthol cigarettes was the highest valued thing that I had.
Wow.
And you could trade for
That's
anything. But anyway, but that's a lot of what we did. I mean, obviously we went on ambushes, and we went on, we did all those kinds of things. I'm trying to remember the fun things, not so much all the terrible, the murder, the little girl that was killed, you know, that still, I wrote about it, and it still burns at me. In fact, that's what caused me to start remembering.
Yeah.
Was writing about the death of this little girl, that one of the little children that was in the camp, and it was kind of tough, you know.
Sure.
And from there, I finally got orders to
go stateside.
Go stateside, and then I had to get to Saigon, and which was a trek in itself. And you go by Sanpan and Honda. You get on the back of a Honda, and all I got is my weapons and a few things, and my men had all changed because, you know, as they got killed or wounded, you know, you gotta, you know, you're by yourself, and so you're going out, and finally I get someplace where I can get on a Jeep, and then I get to Saigon, get to Tan Son Nhut, and
got a new uniform there, I hope?
No. Well, we get there, and I did have I'm trying to think how I ended. I did have on fatigues.
Okay.
I'm trying to think where I got them from.
Maybe in the resupply or something.
Supply. Anyway, I got on some fatigues, and when I got there, then we had to get on the plane, because Tan Son Nhut was under attack, mortar attack, and we're all, you know, 200 and some odd guys sitting on this Braniff airline plane, and so we're sitting there. Everybody's quiet, and you hear boom, boom outside, and you're sitting there thinking, any moment
don't let me get killed.
Don't
on the
let
last
me
day
get killed.
here,
Don't let it happen. You're thinking this little thin aluminum shell.
Yeah.
A bullet rocket's going to come through, and everybody's real quiet, and you know, and I'm kind of got my knees together, holding my hands together, thinking, oh God, don't let nothing happen, don't let nothing happen. And then the plane, they close the door, and the plane takes off, and everybody's real quiet, everything's real low, and then finally we get to, I don't know, it looked like a magical altitude, and we know we're safe. And then all of a sudden, this tremendous yell, yeah.
And where do you land?
We land at Travis.
Okay.
Travis Air Force Base.
So you're close to home.
And landed Travis, and you felt strange.
Yeah.
Really strange. You land there, and they put us on a bus, and they take us to the Oakland Reception Center.
Right.
And along the way, you're going down the freeway, and you're looking at the cars This was so strange. And I'm thinking, and people passing by, and I'm looking at them. Nobody's paying any attention to you. Everything in my head is, do you know what I just went through? Do you know I almost got killed so many times? Do you know? No. Not only they didn't know, they didn't care. And so we finally get to the Oakland Reception Center. You got the protesters, people angry and calling us names.
Yeah.
One guy gets spit on, I didn't, and I looked at it, and I walked in, and that's when you get to clean up, get your physical, and I was trying to tell them about things that were wrong. It was my hearing that was bad. To this day, it's still bad, the ringing in your head.
Artillery will do that to you.
Yes, yes. Sure. And so you go there, you go through the process, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, you feel awfully alone, Bob. You know, you're there, and I finally get everything, and I go to a guy standing over there, and I said, what do I do now? He says, well, do you have your, did you get your physical? I said, yes. He said, did you get your back pay? I said, yes. You got your orders? I said, yes. He said, well, you're now a civilian. Get the F out of here.
Wow.
And I stood there almost with my mouth open thinking,
that's it?
when's somebody going to say,
thank you?
Thank you.
Right.
When's somebody going to tell us that we appreciate what you did, and we know you're coming home to a hostile country, but we appreciate what you did. And that really sunk heavy with me, the fact that even the Army rejected you and nobody there had any compassion, nothing. And it stuck with me, and when I came back, I didn't talk about the war.
Yeah.
Didn't say anything about it.
Right.
In fact, I haven't told you some of the horrible, disgusting things that we had to end up doing.
And I've known you since the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you stuff this stuff down. And when I went back to school, I look at all the kids. I wasn't that much older than them, and I hear them talk about the war, but I kept it to myself. I wouldn't tell anybody.
This was at UC Davis.
UC Davis, just terrible. So you internalize this. And I became extremely focused, just get through, do it. I didn't enjoy school. I saw it as a means to occupation, providing for my family. I had a wife and a daughter, and I didn't see my daughter until she was 11 months old. Yeah. Because she was born, let's see, when I went to Vietnam, my wife was 8 months pregnant. And I tried to stay back for to be the birth of the child, and they wouldn't let you, nothing, you know. They weren't like the military is today. The military was pretty rough at that time.
Yeah, I saw my dad when I was 2 for the first time. So same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So to kind of wind this up, you went to work for the state of California.
Yes, yes.
And you eventually retired as the executive director of the
director of the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development.
Okay.
I was appointed to that by the governor, Governor Duke Machen. He appointed me to that position. And then when Governor Wilson came in, I served 2 years under his administration until finally they replaced me with a friend of his, the friend of the governor. And then I was there until, they didn't know what to do with me, because now I go back to civil service. Right. So I'm stuck in this office doing nothing, basically, because now I have no duties. What are you going to do with the former director? Right. So anyway, so I sit there until I'm able to retire. And which was shortly after.
And you're now a pastor.
I'm pastor of a church.
What church?
At Williams Memorial Church of God in Christ, 4495 Martin Luther King Boulevard, right next to Christian Brothers High School.
Right.
I'm also a former syndicated columnist.
Yeah.
I am an artist. I've done a lot of...
Tell us about your sculptures.
I've done a lot of metal sculptures in the Sacramento area. And I've done, some of the notable things I did was at the Peace Garden at the State Capitol. I did the trellises there. I made the trellises at McKinley Park, and at the Shepherd's Art Building. I made this fancy gate. I did at some of the urban gardens. They have some of my work. At the one by Southside Park, I got a 17-foot tall flower that collects rain and puts it in a 9-foot ladybug.
Wow.
And in North Sacramento, I have, about 10 sculptures all down the street in parks and things like that.
Sure.
And a lot of notable Sacramentans have some of my work, and I do a lot of commission work. And I started doing all this after I was no longer director.
Well, I see the arches at the Peace Garden almost every month because I go to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial there in Capitol Park. And they are beautiful, and it's nice to have that garden right next to the memorial. I have friends who went through officer candidate school with me who are on the wall there, who were killed in Vietnam. So, well, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm proud to have you as a friend, and I'm proud to just know all the things that you've done, and you're a special guy, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our time on Valley to Vietnam. I'd like to thank Larry Meeks for coming in today and say welcome home to him and all the veterans. For Valley to Vietnam producer Jerry Ward and director James Scott, I'm Bob Tribe saying we'll see you next time.